Hello guys, welcome to CRNT Designers Chetan here. In this tutorial we are going to learn more about the depth of field. As an interested cinematographer, I like to make tutorials on the camera. You can see my cinematography channel also. So in this tutorial we will learn depth of field option which is there in the Blender camera. It is important to know about the depth of field when you want to take any kind of render animation. That time you need a depth of field. So before moving toward the tutorial, if you didn't subscribe my YouTube channel, then please subscribe it. Every week I make Blender tutorials. So for that Blender tutorials, you need to subscribe my YouTube channel. So please subscribe my YouTube channel. Now let's get started. Here I have created this scene with some Suzannes. You need to click on your camera and then you can see here camera icon. You need to select this camera icon. And you can see here is option depth of field, DOF we usually call it, depth of field. Okay, so you can see here is option focus on. You can select any subject which you want in sharp focus. Okay, so if I select this Suzanne, red Suzanne, now you can see this red Suzanne is in the sharp focus, not all other. And here is the value of aperture, means not the aperture. F-stop is the reciprocal to the size of your aperture. Okay, if I increase this, then you can see my all things are in the sharp focus. If I decrease, only that red Suzanne is in the sharp focus because I have selected that red Suzanne which I want in the focus. So this is the work of depth of field. What is the depth of field? Aperture is the opening through which light hits to the camera sensor. Size of aperture opening affects the brightness of image and directly affects to the area of shot is in focus. This is known as a depth of field. So in the simple words, depth of field helps to get any subject in the sharp focus and which is depend on this aperture. Okay. Smaller the aperture, greater the depth of field. This is quite confusing because f-stop it's depend on the aperture size, means aperture size is reciprocal to this f-stop. Size of a camera aperture expressed in f-stop, but it is reciprocal. Okay, so that's why if I increase this f-stop, means what? I am going to decrease the size of the aperture. If I decrease this f-stop, then I am going to increase the size of aperture because it's reciprocal. Okay, that's the important thing you should know. That's why smaller the aperture, greater the depth of field. This aperture size is small, then depth of field is greater, and then f-stop value is greater. Aperture size is large, depth of field is shallow. That time f-stop value is small. Okay, this is important thing. Now there are three types of depth of field you can use, which are depend on the smaller aperture, larger aperture and medium aperture. What is the smaller aperture? When you want everything in sharp focus, everything should be in the frame which should be in the sharp focus. That time you need larger depth of field. So you need a smaller aperture. So f-stop number will be high. Okay, in the Blender you can see I want everything. This scene should be all Suzanne should in the sharp focus. Should be in the sharp focus. That time I will increase this f-stop. Okay, f-stop value because I want small aperture. Okay, and this type of smaller aperture is helpful for wide shot, landscape, all this kind of shoots. Okay, then next is the larger aperture. When do you need a larger aperture? When you want that's only one specific thing in the frame, it's in the focus. That time you can use the larger aperture. Larger aperture is used to isolate the subject from rest of frame, and this used to draw focus on important thing, character, emotion like fears, anxiety, sad, etc. So now here I have selected this Suzanne I want this Suzanne in the sharp focus completely. So means I need which depth of field? Shallow depth of field. Okay, means I need to decrease the f-stop. So my aperture size will get increased because f-stop is reciprocal to the aperture size. Now you can see as I decrease the f-stop, only this red Suzanne is in the sharp focus because it's a shallow depth of field. Aperture size is large and depth of field is shallow. And then next is the medium aperture, medium depth of field. Medium aperture helps to draw focus on subject while keeping their environment present. This can be used to dialogue when you want to prioritize many characters. That time you can use this kind of medium depth of field, medium aperture. So now I will give the value something 3 for f-stop here. Maybe 5 will work. So you can see here I have given the value for f-stop is 5. Means my aperture size is also in medium. Now you can see my main subject is in the sharp focus, but the other Suzannes are also in the focus. So this is the medium depth of field, or you can say medium aperture. Thanks for watching. If you like this tutorial, then hit that like button and subscribe my YouTube channel. Bye bye. See you in the next video. Take care.